You've been taught that power is loud, that influence is visible, that the strongest moves are the ones everyone sees coming. You've been taught wrong. The most powerful moves are the ones you never see. They happen in the spaces between words, in the pauses between thoughts, in the subtle shifts of perception that reshape entire worlds without a single dramatic gesture. Welcome to the Silent Gambit. This is not a channel about what people say. It's about what they do. It's about understanding the hidden architecture of human nature, the unspoken motives, the subtle power dynamics, and the psychological levers that shape our world. I'm your guide through the darker corners of psychology, strategy, and philosophy. And if you're watching this, you're already asking the right questions. Most people believe power is obvious. They think it announces itself. They think the most influential people are the ones with the biggest platforms, the loudest voices, the most visible presence. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the world actually works. Consider this: the most powerful person in a room is rarely the one speaking. It's the one who decided what would be discussed before anyone arrived. It's the one who shaped the context, the assumptions, the very framework through which everyone else is thinking. That person may say nothing at all. They may sit quietly in the corner. They may ask a single question that reframes the entire conversation. And everyone will follow their lead without even realizing they're being led. We live in an age of radical transparency. Everyone broadcasts. Everyone performs. Everyone tries to be seen. And in doing so, they've made themselves predictable, readable, manageable. Meanwhile, the truly powerful operate in the spaces that nobody's watching. They understand that visibility is a liability, that being known is being limited, that the moment you become famous, you become constrained by the expectations others have created for you. The Silent Gambit understands this fundamental truth. The most effective moves are invisible until their consequences become undeniable. Human beings are pattern recognition machines. We're constantly scanning our environment, looking for threats and opportunities, trying to predict what comes next. And because we're so focused on what we can see, we're almost entirely blind to what we can't. This is the foundation of psychological influence. When you understand how people think, when you understand their fears, their desires, their unconscious assumptions, you can shape their decisions without them ever realizing they're being influenced. You can guide them toward conclusions they believe they've reached on their own. This isn't manipulation in the crude sense. It's not about deception or trickery. It's about understanding the deeper logic of human behavior and working within it. It's about recognizing that most people don't want to be told what to do. They want to feel like they're making their own choices. The most powerful influencers in the world understand this. They don't command. They suggest. They don't force. They guide. They don't demand compliance. They create conditions where compliance becomes the natural, obvious choice. And they do it so subtly that the person being influenced never suspects they've been influenced at all. Power has structure. It has layers. And most people only understand the surface layer. The first layer is force. Raw, obvious, visible power. This is the power of violence, of coercion, of do this or else. It's the most primitive form of power, and it's also the most fragile. The moment you have to use force, you've already lost. Because force only works when the threat is credible, and threats are only credible when people believe you're willing to follow through. The second layer is incentive. This is the power of offering rewards. It's more sophisticated than force, but it's still visible. Everyone knows they're being incentivized, and incentives can be withdrawn. They can be matched by competitors. They're inherently unstable. But the third layer, the layer where real power lives, is persuasion. This is the power of reshaping how people think, of changing their beliefs about what's possible, what's desirable, what's true. When you can persuade someone, they don't need to be forced or incentivized. They want to do what you want them to do because they've come to believe it's in their own interest. And the beauty of persuasion is that it's invisible. It looks like free choice. It feels like independent thinking, but it's been shaped by forces the person never sees. This is the architecture of real power. This is what separates the people who have to constantly enforce their will from the people whose will becomes everyone else's default assumption. Most people are playing checkers while a small percentage of people are playing chess. But even that metaphor doesn't capture what's really happening. The people who truly understand power aren't playing chess. They're playing a different game entirely. They're the ones who decided what game everyone else would play. They're the ones who set the rules, defined the objectives, and determined what counts as winning. This is the silent gambit. It's the move that happens before the game begins. It's the decision about which game to play. It's the framing that makes certain outcomes seem inevitable and others seem impossible. Consider politics. Most people think politics is about winning debates, getting votes, passing legislation. But the real game is about controlling the narrative. It's about making certain ideas seem obvious and others seem crazy. It's about shaping what people think is even possible to discuss. The same is true in business, in relationships, in social hierarchies. The people who win aren't necessarily the ones with the best arguments or the most resources. They're the ones who've shaped the game itself. And they do it so subtly that most people never realize the game has been rigged. They think they're making free choices within a neutral system. They don't see that the system itself was designed to produce specific outcomes. Here's what separates the people who understand power from everyone else. They recognize that reality itself is negotiable. Not in the sense that facts don't matter, but in the sense that which facts matter, which ones get attention, which ones get ignored, which ones get interpreted as evidence of what is determined by the frame through which people are looking. Think about it. Two people can look at the exact same situation and see completely different things, not because they're stupid or dishonest, but because they're using different frameworks to interpret what they're seeing. The person who controls the frame controls the interpretation. The person who controls the interpretation controls the decision. The person who controls the decision controls the outcome. This is why the most powerful people in the world are rarely the ones with the most information. They're the ones who've shaped how information is interpreted. They're the ones who've made their preferred interpretation seem like the only reasonable one. Consider a simple example. A company announces record profits. Is this good news or bad news? It depends on the frame. If you frame it as the company is thriving, it's good news. If you frame it as workers are being exploited, it's bad news. The facts are identical. The interpretation is completely different. The person who controls the frame controls which interpretation becomes the dominant one. And once the dominant interpretation is established, it becomes self-reinforcing. People seek out information that confirms it. They ignore information that contradicts it. They interpret ambiguous information as supporting it. This is the power of the silent gambit. It's the power to reshape how people think without them ever realizing they're being reshaped. You're watching this because you're starting to see through the illusions. You're beginning to understand that the world doesn't work the way you've been told it works. That power isn't what you thought it was. That influence operates in dimensions you've never been taught to see. This knowledge is dangerous, not because it's false, but because it's true. Once you see how the game is actually played, you can't unsee it. You start noticing the invisible moves. You start recognizing the subtle manipulations. You start understanding why certain people always seem to get what they want while others are constantly struggling. But here's the crucial part. Understanding this doesn't automatically make you powerful. Seeing the game doesn't mean you can play it. Knowledge without application is just another form of powerlessness. What matters is what you do with this understanding, how you apply it, how you learn to make the moves that nobody sees, how you reshape the games you're playing so that the outcomes serve your interests. That's what we explore here. Not abstract philosophy, not theoretical psychology, but the practical, applicable understanding of how power actually works in the real world. We're going to dissect the hidden mechanisms of influence. We're going to show you how perception is shaped. We're going to teach you to read the invisible currents that flow beneath the surface of every interaction, every negotiation, every relationship. And most importantly, we're going to show you how to use this understanding to build genuine, sustainable power. Not the kind that requires constant enforcement, but the kind that becomes self-reinforcing. The kind where people want to follow your lead because they've come to believe it serves their interests. The most powerful moves are the ones you never see. Subscribe to the Silent Gambit. Learn to read the board. Master the silent